The Dells, the Shy Lights, and the Oppressions, to name a few, were groups that dominated that good old Chicago soul. This R&B group had a brief career, but nevertheless they was unappreciated. The Artistics are the topic of today's video. They was a group that had grown through so many multiple lineup changes in such a short period, but they are still overlooked and ignored. Before we start today's video, let's be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and push that notification bell to be sure you won't miss out on any more uploads. Now without further ado, let's cue that intro. The group was created in 1958 at Marshall High School in Chicago, Illinois, with Kirk Thomas as lead, Larry Johnson as first tenor, and Jesse Balian as second tenor, and Aaron Floyd as baritone bass. They, like many other groups, they played at school functions, local talent shows, and in addition to any place they could. By 1960, Thomas departed the group and was replaced by Robert Devine had taken his place. The group's new lineup played at the Democratic National Convention that year. This performance landed the group a gig performing backup vocals for Major Lance, most notably on his song Money Time. Producer Carl Davis brought the group to OK Records in 1963 after being impressed by the group's time singing background. The group's first tracks with the label was not well received. By 1964, Devine left the group and went on to help create a handful of songs for the Temptations as well as record for Motown. However, his recordings was never released. The group was now out of a lead vocalist, so they turned to Charles Davis, who was a former member of the Ducrays, and then Marvin Smith, who was a former member of the Eldorados, who then took over as lead when Davis quit the group. By 1965, the group released its first single, which was originally recorded by Marvin Gaye. This song was Get My Hands on Some Lovin'.
Nobody, I think it's so unfair. Patience.
This single didn't chart, but it was successful locally. The single was followed by This Heart of Mine. The group published their debut album titled Get My Hands on Some Lovin'. Barrett Strong wrote some songs for this album. The group's next two singles didn't chart along with their debut album, so as a result, they was released for OK Records. Following their release, the group followed Carl Davis to Brunswick Records, where he was a label A&R director. The group's first single on the label was I'm Gonna Miss You. This single was the first single from which members of the group began to compose their own material. Marvin Smith departed from the group to go solo before this track started, and Tommy Green took his place. Smith continued to contribute materials and vocals on some of the group's songs until 1970. By 1967, the group had released a second album titled I'm Gonna Miss You. This was followed by the singles Girl I Need You,
And now you're back, and you're trying to recover.
The group's next few singles was less successful, but they recorded two more albums called The Articulate Artistics in 1968 and What Happened in 1969. Carl Davis produced these albums while Eugene Records, former member of the Shy Lights, wrote some songs for these albums. These two albums today are recognized as high points in the history of Chicago R&B recorders. Fans of Northern Soul really adored the group's songs. By 1970, the group had produced a new song called Just Another Heartache.
Find an empty pillow in my bed, and then I remember.
This single was followed by the album I Want You to Make My Life Over. The group's last charted single was in 1971 with Make My Life Over.
I want you
group's final album, Look Out, was released in 1973. By the end of 1973, the group departed Brunswick Records and officially broke up. By 1999, Marvin Smith had briefly reunited the group to record for Motor City Records in the UK. Larry Johnson passed away in June of 2015, while Jesse Bowen passed away in August of 1994. Now, after listening to the group's whole catalog, I believe they are quite good. I believe the group's momentum suffered as a result of numerous lineup changes. The group was successful in the 60s, but by the 70s, its popularity declined. Most notably because of its Detroit rivals, but the 70s was just a new age, loaded with tremendous talent.